Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President Donald Trump beginning his 4-day trip throughout the Middle East, arriving in Saudi Arabia today with a summit coming up that could include discussion of a Palestinian state as Christian groups call for prayer for the upcoming talks. And in Israel, Hamas sets free the last remaining American hostage, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he spoke with Trump and the U.S. and Israel are working together to free the remaining hostages and to defeat Hamas. Here at home, a legal battle over books in a Colorado school district, which parents strongly say are not appropriate for young children. Now the case is in court. And Great Britain, long known as a Christian nation, now discriminates against Christians. But the good news is a move of God is underway. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Tuesday, May 13th, and we begin this day in the Middle East where President Donald Trump is in Saudi Arabia on the first leg of his trip in the region. And some Christian groups fear the president might make a deal they worry could be bad for Israel. Meanwhile, the last living American hostage held in Gaza is free. Edan Alexander is an Israeli-American serving in the Israeli Defense Forces, and he was captured by Hamas October 7th. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
Just hours after walking free from the captivity of a Hamas dungeon in Gaza, Edan Alexander enjoyed this emotional reunion with his family. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave credit for Alexander's release to President Trump and the IDF.
This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the political pressure exerted by President Trump. This is a winning combination.
In his first message, Alexander thanked President Trump and wrote out, "Am Israel High, the people of Israel live." Alexander later spoke on the phone with the president.
And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead, so that's sad.
Netanyahu also said he spoke to President Trump after what many are concerned is a growing disagreement between the two countries.
He told me, I am committed to Israel. I am committed to continuing to work with you in close cooperation to achieve all of our war goals, to release all the hostages, and to defeat Hamas. It goes together. The things are intertwined.
Still, some Middle East analysts see Alexander's release as a diplomatic victory for Hamas. While the terror group received no compensation, they say it succeeded in drawing the U.S. into pressuring Israel to end the war in Gaza. Netanyahu's office announced it's sending a negotiating team to Doha to see if a deal can be reached to release more hostages from Gaza. All this on the eve of a major push by the IDF to defeat Hamas and as President Trump begins his visit to the region. President Trump arrived Tuesday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and greeted by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The goal of the trip is a potential diplomatic and economic bonanza that could bring as much as $1 trillion in investment in the U.S. Regional leaders will participate in a summit Wednesday that may include Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Some believe Crown Prince bin Salman may want to tie the establishment of a Palestinian state to normalizing relations with Israel. It's this focus on a Palestinian state, along with the lure of a massive economic deal, that concerns many Christian groups who support Israel. It's why the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is putting out a call to prayer that says, in part, we are calling on committed Christians everywhere to set themselves aside for more focused prayer over the coming days concerning the high-stakes diplomacy playing out before our eyes. This moment could bring great benefits for Israel and the entire region, or it could bring us closer to the dire prophetic judgment of Joel chapter 3. That passage scripture issues a warning about the consequences of dividing up the land of Israel.
Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So, Chris, what would be Israel's response to accepting a Palestinian state in exchange for normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia?
Well, I don't think they would agree to that right now, Ephraim, especially after October 7th. Any deal with Hamas is out of the question. Palestinian Authority as well. A lot of people believe that the Palestinian Authority is sort of much like Hamas. Many of the people that support the Palestinian Authority supported October 7th. Last July, in 2024, the Knesset voted 69-8, which is a pretty substantial vote there in the Knesset, opposing the establishment of a Palestinian state. And then the public, in early 2025, there was a poll taken, and over 70% of Israelis oppose a Palestinian state. And so the support for a Palestinian state has really dropped from 34% down to about 21%. So despite the fact that they may ask or support a Palestinian state there in Riyadh, I don't think there's much appetite here in Israel for a two-state solution.
What is the concern among Christians about the biblical warning against dividing the land, and how does it apply to the current situation with Israel?
Well, the scripture that Christians are looking at is in Joel chapter 3, and it goes like this. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat here in Jerusalem, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. The key there for many Christians is that it's really God's land. And if you divide this land, there are consequences. A Palestinian state would divide God's land. The West Bank, what people refer to, is really the biblical heartland of Israel. It's called Judea and Samaria. On Sunday, I happened to visit a place called Shiloh. Some people call it Shiloh, but that's the exact place where Hannah prayed for a son. It's where Samuel the prophet ministered before the Lord. It's where Joshua divided up the land between the 12 tribes. So these are the biblical heartland of Israel. This is what people are saying may be a future Palestinian state. So that's why the concern many have is what will happen if they do advocate a two-state solution.
Some Christians are pointing to evidence as to what happens when you divide God's land. What is that?
Well, there's a book that I think a lot of people would enjoy reviewing and reading. It's called Eye to Eye. It's by a man named Bill Koenig. And what he has done over the years, for many, many years, I would say over 20, 25 years, is document and chronicle how where governments have tried to divide God's land, and then they suffer the consequences. It could be natural calamities, political turmoil. There's also people that look to the deal of the century in 2020 by the Trump administration and the Netanyahu government. After they did that, both countries suffered really a lot of political turmoil in both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump didn't get reelected after that deal. Also, the Oslo Accords that have been going on since back in 1993, that many people believe really had consequences both here in Israel and around the nations for trying to divide the land that God calls his own.
Will the release of Edan Alexander increase the pressure on the Israeli government to make a deal with Hamas for the remaining Israeli hostages?
It seems like it already has, Ephraim. Negotiators, as we reported in our story, are already going to Doha and Qatar. So there's internal pressure from different groups here inside Israel, but also external pressure from the Trump administration and others. Right now, there's 58 hostages still in Gaza, approximately 20 that believe are still alive. But there's that's growing international and domestic pressure to prioritize the return of the hostages. On the other hand, many Israelis want to prioritize defeating Hamas, make that a priority, despite the emotional attachment of the hostages. But in the long term, they believe defeating Hamas is what Israel really needs to do.
Why are some people concerned about the influence of Qatar in everything that's going on now?
Well, they're tied to Hamas. They hosted the Hamas leadership. The leadership there in Doha rejoiced on October 7th. They've funded Hamas for years. Yigal Karman, who chronicles what Qatar says about Hamas. He says Hamas is Qatar, Qatar is Hamas, yet they're a mediator of the hostages. So some people see they're kind of the arsonists and the firemen, and they've been buying favor with many people. People believe not only in colleges and universities, but in things that are going on right now with the current administration.
All right, lots to cover today. Before we let you go, what do you have on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have talking to a Mossad agent for 24 years about the threats that are facing Israel. We also have a story with Avish Shalev, who really said, how could we miss the signs of October 7th? And we have our regular updates here on Jerusalem Dateline today.
All right, look forward to all of that. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you as always for your insights. Of course, we look forward to speaking with you in the days ahead as President Trump makes his rounds in the Middle East. I want to remind you at home that you can see the latest from Jerusalem Dateline. You can find it at 8 Eastern on the CBN News channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, or you can find it on YouTube. Coming up here at home, a controversy over school books in a Colorado district and whether they're appropriate for young children. The community says they are not, but after a lawsuit, a judge ordered the books returned to the library. So now the question is, what's next? We're going to bring you the story when we come back.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
A battle over books available to young children ranging in age is raging in Colorado. A district school board voted to remove 19 books deemed inappropriate for library shelves. Well, now the school district is appealing a federal court order to put them back. CBN's Jenna Browder brings us the story.
In August, the Elizabeth School Board voted to remove 19 books from its school libraries, books it deemed inappropriate. Titles included The Hate You Give, 19 Minutes, and George.
It's about a character who is in 4th grade who is transitioning.
Superintendent Dan Snowberger and District Public Information Officer Jeff Mayer say this book was available to kids as young as 5 years old.
She immersed her body in the warm water and tried not to think about what was between her legs.
Before making it official, the district sought community input.
We provided a display for 25 days for families in the community to come and review them, read them, and give the board feedback. Overwhelmingly, the community said we don't feel these books have value and should be removed from our library.
4 months later, the ACLU sued on behalf of 2 students, the NAACP and the Authors Guild. Lawyers argued removal of the books violated students' First Amendment rights to access different information and ideas. A district judge agreed and ordered the books be returned. Now, after some legal back and forth, the books are back on school shelves, while the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals considers the case.
Part of the litigation has really been around what is the right of a school board to curate its content. We feel very strongly that the libraries in our district are part of the curriculum resources. And so our board's view and my view is that the materials contained in our library should support our curriculum. And needless to say, the books that were removed did not.
Associate Dean and Professor at Regent University School of Law, Brad Jacob, says in a situation like this, judgment calls have to be made.
There could be illegal reasons why a decision is made. If a school district says, we're not going to allow any books that show Black people, we're just going to have no books about Black people in our library. You're going to say, okay, that looks like race discrimination, looks like we've got an Equal Protection Clause challenge. But in general, the decisions about what books will be most helpful, what will most of our students gain from having on the shelf, and what is appropriate for them to read in this school, elementary, middle school, high school, those are for school authorities to make based on the input that they get from their community.
For Snowberger, it's as simple as letting parents do the parenting.
We want children to come to school with the values they have at home and go home with those values. It's not our job to change them. It's our job to teach children to read, write, do math, learn science, civics, and social studies.
For now, the case remains in a holding pattern as the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals considers both sides. We expect the court to make either a ruling or decide to hear further arguments within the next few weeks. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Still ahead, a place where Christians are arrested, tried, and convicted for silently praying. And it's not in the Middle East, it's happening in Britain. Why believers have become second-class citizens in what has been known as a Christian nation. But also, how a religious awakening could be right around the corner. We're going to bring you the story right after this. Great Britain once served as a base for world evangelism and Christian missions. Today, it is known more for abandoned churches and blatant discrimination against Christians. The good news, a move of God is underway. CBN's Dale Hurd is on the story.
Be excused to think that this is a church, but as is the case across the UK, we've took it over. It's now actually a mosque, a masjid. Christianity is depleting, atheism is unfulfilling, Islam is here and it's here to stay for you. So carry on making those churches for us, keep them empty. We'll buy them in a few years' time and we'll make them into a mosque.
For decades in Britain, interest in church was so low, thousands of historic church buildings were abandoned, turned into bars, skate parks, and even mosques. And in this officially Christian nation where the king is prayed over and anointed with oil by an archbishop, a poll showed that most British Christians experience hostility and ridicule for their faith. An Army veteran last year was convicted for a thought crime, his private prayer. And residents living near abortion clinics have been warned about praying inside their own homes. A public stand for Christ here could easily cost you your job or your career. In officially Christian Britain today, it is Bible-believing Christians who are the outsiders. They're the ones who are expected to keep silent and not offend others. The Rushmore Borough Council west of London even proposed criminalizing public Christian prayer, singing, and evangelism in the towns of Aldershot and Farnborough, before an intervention by Christian Legal Center attorney Michael Phillips temporarily halted the move.
And so when I read over this proposal, it was literally banning almost everything. To ban amplification, to ban singing, to ban street preaching if it is hostile towards people with protected characteristics. It means the decimation of free speech. And that's, these are the kinds of threats that we're seeing across the country.
One of the evangelists facing a ban is Jamie Brody, who told us about one of his encounters with police.
To begin with, some junior officers came and they tried to shut off the microphone straight away. So I began recording them and I just tried to engage them in a discussion. And I said, look, please, can you tell me what law you're acting upon?
After a public outcry, the preaching ban was put on hold. But we asked Brody if a new law would stop him.
Much of the New Testament was written from prison. So, no.
This has been happening for decades. The removal of crosses, the removal of prayer, the continual arrest of street preachers.
Andrea Williams of Christian Concern, which is helping Brody, says that while there are large dynamic churches in the UK, anti-Christian hostility has caused many British Christians to self-censor, to keep their faith private.
There's a whole raft of self-censorship. The church has censored itself in this country. It's as if we've become ashamed of the gospel, ashamed of our history, ashamed of who Christ is, so that we've removed him from the public space.
Now, suddenly, after decades of both religious apathy and secular opposition, British newspapers are beginning to use the word revival. Churches reported record attendance on Easter, and more British young men are going to church. Justin Brierley is the author of The Surprising Rebirth of Belief in God.
I think that's been the surprise for me, is to see that intellectual shift now being met by a real wave of interest, especially interestingly from young people in this country who it appears are returning to church again. Very often these are young people who don't necessarily have any history with Christianity. So these are very unchurched Gen Z people.
And so this new generation that are rising up, they're growing up with no knowledge of Christianity. That's why the young Christians, this new wave of Christians, are generally quite radical.
Jamie Brody, too, believes revival is near.
My opinion is that I can feel it. I can feel it in my fingers. God is doing it.
Jamie also says God has taken the attempt to silence his preaching and turned it around.
I have never seen more unity in the local area between the churches, and I've never seen more interest in evangelism. God is working.
The British author G.K. Chesterton once wrote that Christianity has died many times and risen again. It appears to be rising again in Great Britain. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Stay with us.
Using a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I hope you will be encouraged by this message and you will post, tag, tweet, and share with those in your circles of influence. Goals are great, but the greatest lessons are gained in the journey to reach them. We must learn to enjoy the process as much as we anticipate the promise. Process prepares you to handle the promise. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. Take a moment and let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Make it a terrific Tuesday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow.